expressing gratitude for those who came before us and are with us still. We pledge ourselves to do the work of decolonization, restoration, reconciliation as we move forward to a more just future. Thank you. We're so excited to see you all here this afternoon on this warm Sunday afternoon. There is water over on the counter by the little kitchenette. If you need a drink, feel free to get up and help yourself. Keep hydrated. This has been an amazing journey for Adrian and I and the whole team. What has been 30 years of collecting for Adrian, but 3 years of intensive project planning for us here at the Irving Archives and Museum. If you are into the news or socials, you may have seen museums in the conversation a lot this past week. We're not used to the spotlight quite at that level, but we have become one of the targets of the national dialogue that we are all currently living through. So I'm going to put in a shameless plug. If you are available next Saturday afternoon, we actually have the curator from the National Museum of American History, Dr. Catherine Ott, coming to the museum here to talk. And she is the curator of their LGBTQ collections. And so she has been on the front line of this for decades. But of course, the tenor has definitely changed here over the last 6 months for sure, and the last couple of weeks have been particularly intense. So if you're available, we would love for you to come out and support her and just help her to know that there are people out here that really value her work as well as the work that we're doing here. We are 5 weeks and counting on this exhibition, so please tell your friends that we, that it's here. Bring them. We're free till the end of the run of the exhibition. And it's just been such an amazing experience for us here at the museum to be able to engage with the LGBTQ community and our broader community to tell this story. And we look forward to what Adrian is going to do in the future with this project and are so proud that we were able to kind of help launch Gadget Pride into this next stage. So without further ado, it is my honor to introduce Adrian Cardwell, the Executive Director of Gadget Pride.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you, all of you, for being here today. And thank you to everybody who's watching the live stream. So we are also online on our social media platforms. So we welcome everybody here today. So Jen mentioned this has been a 30-year journey for me. I started doing this as a young gay thing in West Texas. I was about 19 years old when my first artifact made its way into my collection. My coming out process was not great. This is Lubbock, Texas, also was not great in the early '90s. So I'm also revealing my space here on the panel here. I got connected with PFLAG, parents and family and friends of lesbians and gays. They still, to this day, are my favorite LGBT affiliated organization because they quite literally saved my life. It was, I mentioned that my coming out was not a great process. These PFLAG parents took me in. They said, Adrian, you are not broken, you are not damaged, and you are part of a rich, vibrant, and beautiful community. And they started sharing information with me that gave me a sense of community and a sense of history. Because at that time, if we think finding books in the library about the queer experience is bad now, imagine what it was in the gay '90s. I was, bold, and so I would see a name, and I would call directory assistant. So that's when you would call the phone company. If it was like so-and-so in New York, I would call 212-55-1212, and would ask the operator on the other end of the line, is this person listed in the phone book? And can I have their phone number? And I would call them. And this is also before caller ID. So people would answer the damn phone, right? And so that is how these conversations started. And so these titans in our movement, these leaders who shaped history, made history, they just sent me little tiny tokens, a little button, a copy of a flyer, a postcard, a poster, and then ... 30 years later, 10,000 artifacts later, my husband is like, what the hell are you doing with all of this shit in our house? Let's do something with it, right? And so that's kind of, so this, 10,000 artifacts, that's a lot of stuff. But I'm very, very organized about it. Everything is very photographed, meticulously cataloged in a database. So I'm also a pretty aggressive nerd on this topic as well. So, so this all came together about 3 years ago is when I first met Jen, a mutual friend of ours. She teases me. She said, okay, Cardwell, you're going to come out of the closet twice in your life. First as a gay man, second as a museum nerd. And I want you to meet another museum nerd, Jen Landry. And so at the time, the museum here had a fabulous traveling exhibition from the Smithsonian on the Green Book. Which, if you're not familiar with that was a publication that was created within and for the African American community so that they could safely travel road trip across the country. Where were the places to go? Where were the places to avoid? And Smithsonian put on this fabulous traveling exhibit, and I knew as soon as we met that we were kindred spirits and trying to bring history alive and also to activate change, and that's what Adrian Cardwell is set to do. So this has been a 3-year process to get this across the line. We are, as Jim mentioned, 5 weeks from today, this thing closes. So bring everybody you know out. We have been very deliberate about making sure that the exhibit is free to the public. So that's been my job, is to do fundraising to make sure that that happens. And so we have been able to make it free to the public. We've also made sure that it is translated completely into gender inclusive Spanish. Every single word. And so that accessibility is intentional. We have also built a digital platform in partnership with the Bloomberg Connects organization. So you can download an app on your phone, and a lot of these artifacts that you will be able to see later on today come to life. There you will hear some stories behind them from some of the people whose life is represented in the object. So please do explore that. We want that to be as easy and accessible as possible. Coming up, Jen did mention a couple of things. So next Saturday, we have Catherine Off from the Smithsonian who will be here. Just yesterday, we had Mark Siegel, who is a Stonewall veteran. He was there that fateful night in June of 1969 in New York. And he regaled us with a lot of his stories there, being a media trailblazer, disrupting media in the 70s and still influencing our movement still today. We have on Wednesday will be the North Texas LGBTQ Chamber. They're hosting their Pride Happy Hour here. So that is free. You just got to sign up on their website. On September the 13th, we're going to have the Dallas Way. We'll be hosting an event here as well. And then we made a little bit of news yesterday. I'm going to share it with you. We haven't announced it officially yet, but just in the last few weeks, we invited more than a dozen queer poets to come into this space and just take the history and be inspired by some of the artifacts that are on display and to create original works of poetry. And so we will be doing a live reading of that after we close on October the 5th. So come to that. And this is a variety of styles of poetry. It's going to be so dang cool, y'all. We'll be publishing an anthology zine as well. Gotta have all of these in. So, and then we close, and then we start to work on what happens next. And that is the exhibit that you will see today. If you have not seen it yet, we're going to be working to reformat it so it can go to more communities. And that because everybody deserves to see themselves reflected in history and in a museum. And so that's going to be the next phase of our work that we're very, very, very excited about. Okay, with that, I have done the long monologue intro here. So I'm going to bring up Javier from the Dallas Social Queer Organization, or DSQO. It has been a treat to work with Javier. We did, right before the exhibit opened, we collaborated on a queer history walking tour. Was anybody on that? We're in the neighborhood. Yeah, okay, awesome. That was a lot of fun to collaborate with him. It was fun to talk with him about this about this topic that we're going to go over today. And I imagine we're working pretty well together. You can probably stay tuned for more stuff. So with that, Javier, come on up.
Hello. Hello. My name is Javier. I use him pronouns, and I'm with the Dallas Social Queer Organization, again, known as DSQO. We still like to believe that we're a little bit of a baby nonprofit. We've been going for about 2 years now, and our goal is to build community and a sense of belonging for all LGBTQ plus adults in Dallas. We believe that providing spaces for people to build community can be really affirming and life-saving for so many queer people. The sense of loneliness is really dreadful and can have devastating impacts. And so we do this by having support groups, we throw parties, we have workshops, we do queer history tours, and it takes a lot of volunteers and a lot of gay gumption to get this done. So everything that we do here is entirely volunteer driven. If you want to support DSQO and all the work that we do, feel free to follow us or give us your money. That's a really great way to do this, especially in Texas right now. To plug a few different events coming up. One, we have coming up on Wednesday, so the 27th, we are having a Madonna mixer at Crush. It's going to be really awesome. It's going to be our continuation of trying to build more intergenerational community. So if you are a fan of Madonna or you need to expose yourself to Madonna, this is going to be a really great time. Come out with your best material world wardrobe. It's going to be really cute. And then on Thursday, we are having, what are we having posted on Thursday?
Disability.
Oh, it's your disability history. Yes, by our one and only Leah over here. We have multiple affinity groups ranging from disability affinity group to Latina and API. So we're really happy to put that on. And then on Sunday, we're having queer yoga and mindfulness in partnership with Yogazama. And then ending off the month, we're having another pool party. If you are a supporter of DSQO or if you volunteer with DSQO, we want to celebrate you and have a closing out to the summer pool party. And so with that, do you want me to go ahead and?
Hey, Al. Hey.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what
Okay, bring back on Adrian.
All right, if I could please invite our esteemed panelists up to the front here. And I will do some brief intros for everybody, which I'm very excited for you all to meet these amazing folks. So the way we've structured this is everybody up here represents a decade. So we'll kick it off here in our 20s with Aika, who is a neurodivergent, disabled, non-binary, first-generation Japanese American, and uses they, he pronouns. They are a local therapist and with a passion for helping transgender and neurodivergent individuals work through their trauma and learn how to live authentically. Everybody welcome. Then we have representing the 30s is Mikael, and she is a dynamic communications and engagement expert with a rich background in the public service sector, ranging from not-for-profit radio administration to crafting programming, directing and impacting individuals at the intersection of Black and transgender and non-conforming experience. As a passionate advocate for belonging and equity, she has leveraged her unique perspective as an Afro-Latina woman of trans experience to transform and contribute to creative and media-driven representation with the goal of amplifying the stories of underrepresented and underserved communities and contribute to the stabilization and enrichment of our LGBTQ legacy and culture globally. Everybody welcome. Moving on into the 40s is DR Hansen, a graduate of San Francisco State University, summa cum laude, with a BA in theater. DR has used his acting training to entertain on various stages in San Francisco, New York City, and Dallas. He dabbles on stage, but spends most of his time leading the HR initiatives at Common Ground Games, Dallas's premier board game store, which he opened with his husband, Jameson Sachs, in 2013. Never be satisfied, DR founded a monthly LGBTQ film series called Cinewild, which is currently celebrating 11 years of programming that educates, entertains, and engages Dallas every month. A Jew by choice and a radical fairy by birthright, DR is so happy that we're doing this, right? That we're building community and we're having these conversations to help address the intergenerational gap that exists in our community. So everybody, welcome. And then, at this end of the stage, we have two of us in our 50s. Yay! This is Ben Anderson. He is a proud gay Black man and Texas native, a lifelong barrier breaker. He became the first male employee at Bath & Body Works in his hometown in 1997, and later performed with the DCI Color Guard alumni in St. Petersburg, Florida, on the historic day that marriage equality was legalized in the United States. Raised in the Southern Baptist Church, Ben pursued leadership as a junior deacon, only to confront rejection and hostility that shaped his understanding of faith and community. Despite those challenges, he has built a fulfilling career as an occupational therapist in the healthcare industry, where he continues to thrive. Ben describes himself as successful, happy, and deeply committed to living authentically. He honors the memory of family, friends, and loved ones who may not be here today, ensuring their legacies live on through his voice and advocacy. Everybody, welcome. Well, I am so excited to have you all here, and what I wanted to start with is, as a community, we have reclaimed multiple times those objects, those phrases, those words that have been used to oppress us, right? You can see, if you haven't seen the pink triangle that we have in the exhibit, that is a very visual example of how we reclaim that symbol of death and oppression for our community. But also language, right? Language that evolved and language that we've reclaimed some of that, right? And one is, I think, a word that some people still have some difficulty with, that is the word queer. And so that was formally used as a term of, it was a derogatory term, right? And I will, as full disclosure, that is a word that for me was charged until about 5 years ago. And started doing this work, engaging with this beautiful community, and now it just rolls off my tongue. It's like it's just part of. I identify as queer now. Does everybody who does not identify as queer? Anybody? Yeah. All right. Good. All right. Well, so let's talk a little bit about that. So why don't we start with Ika? What's queer? What's the queer experience mean to you?
I think for me, whenever I think of the word queer, I think of, the fact that that is what meant me finally finding the freedom to be myself and being able to find a community of people who embrace me as I am and for who I am. And even though there are a lot of, barriers and limits there, it almost gives me, the confidence that I can overcome them. Especially when I think of all of my queer elders who queer and trans elders who fought for me to get to this point. It makes me feel very empowered.
Yeah, that's right. That's great. I want to jump down here to the end here to Ben, because I know you in your lifetime have also kind of witnessed that evolution of the term. What does it mean to you?
Oh, it means so many different things to me. Growing up as a minority in a small town, I chose to get out and, give all my attention to the world for so I'm obligated to carry the queer experience and continue.
Microphone.
Oh, yeah. Talk to the microphone there.
Yeah. I survived. I'm here. Yes, I survived, and I've seen many things happen in my life from those who came before me. I'm determined to carry on the legacy of those people. They're not forgotten. He's still here. Yeah. I'm soft-spoken, can you tell?
Yeah, I think that's great. And so I wanted to start with that before we really kind of dive into the rest of the questions. I wanted to set that up because we're gathering at a time when just the mere act of existing visibly as a queer person is being politicized, right? It's being erased or it's being spun as someone else's culture war, right? And we've seen politicians and public figures question whether our stories belong in classrooms, on stages, or in museum exhibits. Not this team here, thankfully. And yet here we are. We're alive. We're complicated, and we're unafraid to speak. I'm so excited to dive into this conversation. So this conversation that we're going to have today was built on a simple but radical belief, and that is, if we want to understand each other, we have to talk to each other. And if we want the world to understand us, we have to tell the truth about who we are. So at the heart of this exhibit today is a question that Harvey Milk asked. He asked, how can people change their minds about us if they don't know who we are? And that's what we're trying to answer here today. That's what we try to answer in the exhibit. So today, you're going to hear from 4 queer people across 4 decades of life. And they come from radically different times, right? And they all carry different battles, joys, identities, and hopes, but we're still here, we're still building, still becoming, and we're all part of the same unfinished journey, right? So I'm going to start here with a quote, and this is from Audre Lorde. Without community, there is no liberation, but community must not mean a shedding of our differences, nor the pathetic pretense that these differences do not exist. You cannot ignore them. We must acknowledge them and embrace them, right? And so that was from a master in our community of poetry and words. That was from her book, The Master's Tools Will Never Dismantle the Master's Path, in 1984. All right, friends, let's jump in. So let's start with sort of the flash portrait of where each of you are. So why don't you help us complete this sentence? Being queer in my insert decade here means, and we'll start with TR, then we'll just kind of bounce around this way.
Sure. Being queer in my 40s, I'm 43, it means action for me right now. I've been able to position myself in a point in my life where I can take actions towards and ideas into reality. I can take a little bit longer to bake, so to speak, but this cake is rising, and I'm really excited to keep doing what I feel is right for me, for our community, for the world. So it really is just speaking up, doing things, even when they're uncomfortable, even when they're hard, but action is what it means for me right now.
Yeah.
Being queer in my 30s, I am 32, just me 32 Leo season.
Yeah.
For me, it is about community, but in the way of discovery. I think that I spent much of my 20s in discovery of myself, and that laid a lot of the groundwork of what it meant to be able to come responsibly and effectively be visible and speak and take up space the way that I do now.
That's right.
And so, yeah, 30s for me is like identifying and connecting with the community.
Can you talk a little bit more about that journey of discovery? What was that path like?
Sure. I mean, giving you full context, I was raised in a Caribbean Pentecostal home. And so if anyone knows anything about the Pentecostal church, it is just one tick above the Baptist church. And so there was, a lot of self-hatred. There was a lot of things I just didn't know. I mean, I didn't meet the first ever trans person until I was 24 years old, and that took me to come to Texas. And I'm coming from Washington, D.C., so that says something. And so, yeah, so that journey of, okay, so there's a word for it, and then there are other people also experiencing this, and so you're not actually insane. That spending a decade of figuring out what that looks like and doing some deep, shallow work, and I'm sure that'll come up later in this conversation. But doing some deep, shallow work put me in a place to where, like, okay, I'm good. It's not perfect, but I'm good. Let's reach someone else.
That's right. Great.
So being queer in my 20s, I'm 25. It means a lot of like also discovery, but I feel like maybe in the way that you were describing that when you were like 24 meeting your first trans person, where I'm like, oh, like I've only been out for 3 years now, and a lot of it was also growing up in a religious background and like being homeschooled in a religious setting as well. There wasn't really a chance for me to get to know who I was. And then once I was finally able to make decisions for myself and have control over my life, that allowed me to set the boundaries I needed to in order to allow me to embrace myself. And yeah, it's also a lot of like looking forward to the future and seeing where else this journey will take me.
I think that's great. I think you make I think an interesting point here. You talk about your background and growing up in a homeschool environment, right? And so there's not a whole lot of inputs necessarily, so, you know, socially, right? So, who or what helped you clean your truth?
It was actually when I was in my master's program for counseling. I started it very young. I was like 20 years old when I got into it. But I went to University of North Texas in Denton, and turned out the counseling program is really clear. And that was where I met my first trans person. I think I was 21, and she's actually the person who helped me realize that I was non-binary, because we had to film like a role play video, and she was like, "You're gonna be the Debbie girl child that uses they, she pronouns." And then she called me they, and I was like, oh, why does my body tingle? Like, why does that feel But it was like finding community is like what has allowed me to embrace myself.
That's amazing. Yeah, we'll be talking a lot about how we have, you know, we build community and we make connections like that. I think that'll be interesting to hear all of your perspectives on that. So Ben, what is being queer in your 50s like?
I'm still determined to carry on this legacy and continue to teach younger generations the struggle that those that began before me, can pass this on to the further generations, the millennials, that seem to be what's led to really understand the struggle, because we're getting farther and farther away. As growing up in a small town, being a black gay male, the struggle was real from a very young age. I remember going to the store with my grandmother, and I've always been inquisitive, so I've always wanted to know, what's going on? So I was looking at these men one day, and I was told, hey, you need to put that boy in his place. And the N-word, I had no idea, and I cried all the way home, walked a couple of blocks. So I was determined then, and I knew that there was something different about me, but I was going to embrace it. From a very young age, I've always been that way, still that way to this day. I don't know how to not be pretty open-minded. So I was determined to survive, be there for the future, and carry on, because I was not going to be held down, and I would always have a voice. But I was determined to make my way through and just survive and be the best person I could be. And right now, I'm 53. So there's not many people left above us that can still tell these stories. So I'm determined to pass this information down, and hopefully the younger generations will pass it on and keep it alive. Badger pride is very important to me.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That's amazing. So when you realized who you were, what did that realization twofold? What did it cost you? And what did it give you?
I lost my family. I have chosen family. There were situations people didn't understand in my family. How could I live out loud? Why did I fight against everything? I had to fight just to get out. I've been a strong person all my life. So I had to just go forward and be the best person and learn knowledge is power. Pass it on. When you know better, you do better.
Right. So coming out it's only part of the story, right? But staying out can sometimes be just as hard, but also just as fulfilling, right? So finding home, building community, that's really where the real work begins, right? And so I want to hear from each of you about how you have found and or forged your own community. And so, Miguel, I'm going to start with you. So you work to amplify underrepresented stories through media and advocacy. What kind of community have you had to build or seek out to sustain yourself in that work?
Sure. My story is really unorthodox. So I have moved a lot in my lifetime. Went to 14 different schools before I graduated high school. I've lived all over the Eastern Seaboard, most of the continental South. And so I've seen a lot of different places, met a lot of different kind of people. I've lived in suburban neighborhoods. I've lived in a little concrete house in the Caribbean. I lived in some neighborhoods you probably wouldn't go to by yourself. So I've lived a little bit everywhere, which means that I've experienced this loss of life. I've met and worked with very at least kind of people. And so for me, it's always been personal. There is not a separation of I'm doing this work and I'm living this, it's all one place. And so being able to do that responsibly sometimes can be hard. And so that's where community becomes important, because there has to be a part that yes, there is parts to work. But these are the people that you can lean into. These are the people who can catch you if you fall, when you are breaking, when you need to cry, need to scream into space.
Yeah.
It is important to have these people, because more often than not, I'm learning in this era of my 30s, is that 9 times out of 10 these folks in the classroom do the same thing in the private of their own home, or they're in their class, or wherever they go to stress. But yeah, that has been the advantage of being able to connect so many different people before I even had my own kind of self-sentience. That I was connecting with folks outside of a queer space for whatever reason beforehand. It's just kind of bringing that skill into this, being able to see people wholly and not for the parts or pieces even that they see themselves for sometimes, because we have that habit of referring to ourselves in parts and pieces.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, you're right. So like a lot of times we sort of reveal ourselves in parts and pieces, to your point there, right? And I think as someone who moved around so much, you had to become very adept at sliding into new spaces and making community there. You have some tips and tricks on how to do that. Because you're also a fairly recent Dallas graduate.
I am.
Right?
So I just moved to Dallas officially in 2023. I've been coming back and forth since 2019. I was producing and co-hosting a podcast, and then took this position with Texas Black Community Foundation. And so yeah, it has been an abrupt change coming from the East Coast. And so I would say, at least for me, this process has actually been, I'm being transparent, it's been the newest version of this process, and as opposed to any other time I moved. I had to really let go of a lot of control to come to this. I didn't really see myself being in Texas when I first moved here. And it necessarily wasn't a bad thing, it's just that I didn't have a reason to be here. And then the universe found a reason for me to be here. And so in that process, it's been a lot of letting go of the preconceived notions of what I thought I was meant to be doing. And then part of that was finding community, which then helped kind of find purpose. And so I said, if you just keep this kind of stuff open to saying yes and being surprised, yeah.
I think that's some good advice for everybody. You gotta learn to say yes and be open to what happens. So DR, I've known you for a while, and you create multiple queer spaces, right? So for Cinewild, you're involved in the Radical Fairies, even a business with your husband, which I think will probably be its own conversation, and how you start and maintain a business with your spouse. What is that? What has that work taught you about what queer people need to feel at home and to feel connected?
I feel like queer community is one of my divine callings, creating space for queer people, our people. I think so much of the queer experience is steeped in redoing, reparenting, reloving, repairing the world that we were not born into. We're not born of this world. We were not given language. The language that we use is not ours. The spaces that we are in is not ours. We have to forge ahead and create queer spaces, because no one was doing that before we were doing that. And as we're seeing now, there is a huge attack to those spaces. So much of the queer experience is redoing and then exploring that. And I think so much of what motivates us to do what we do, and motivates a lot of queer people to create spaces and community, is from a place of trying to make their little queer kiddo happy. So honestly, a lot of the work that I do is quite selfish because every event that I do, every space that I create, it makes it's healing that little queer kid who I desperately try to keep alive and happy. I never want any queer person to feel less than, because baby, we're so much more. We are so much more than what this world can even imagine. And so when we create space, when I have the privilege and the luxury to create a space and people show up and they find something, they learn something, it's an absolute gift. And we desperately need it now more than ever.
Yeah, that's right. You know, a couple of things that you said there reminded me. One of our titans, one of our elders in our community, Larry Kramer, who affected so much change in our nation and the world, quite frankly. He was very adamant, and he would say every time he had the chance, he was like, queer people are special. We are special.
I mean, I would go the next. It's not. We're magical. We are not of this world.
Yeah.
Nobody can define us. We get to define us. That is something that I think only queer people get to do, because there's been nobody ahead of us. So I think that I find it freeing as fuck. Like,
Yeah.
I get to walk into a space every day and be like, who am I? And I think that's something that our community does more than any other marginalized community, is we create space and value and celebrate people showing up and identifying however they want to be in that moment. I know so many people that's like, hey, when I wear a red hat, I want you to use she, them pronouns. I was like, bitch, come on, yeah, wear that red hat. All right. I might not remember that, but you've communicated to me that's what it is, and I get to meet you where you are, and I can say she, her when she wears that red hat. They when they wear that red hat. And I think that's fucking cool. It's hard, it's mind-boggling, it's maddening at times, because I don't think anybody ever wants to offend. And when somebody corrects us, we can take that personally and be defensive, but that's not the point. The point is to show up where our siblings are and how they want it to be. And I don't know any other community that does that. And I think that's just delightfully beautiful.
Yeah. No, that's right. And I think the other point that you made there earlier on about sometimes we just have to relearn these behaviors that have kind of been, from the beginning, right? So I got, as a therapist, you help others to kind of help navigate this world. What spaces have helped you feel safe and fully seen as a neurodivergent, disabled, non-binary, and first-generation person? So this is a big intersection that you live in.
Oh, there's so many intersections. And honestly, my partner is a very big part of that, right there. I have never shared so many identities with one person before, because we're both first gen, both non-binary, both neurodivergent. And that has been very healing for me just in itself. But also, like, when I met them, it was on Hinge, and like 3 days later, oh no, Bumble, sorry, my bad. And like after 3 days, they're like, hey, you want to come to a queer Thanksgiving? And I was like, oh, what? And I swear, I thought I was going to shit myself the entire drive there. I was so nervous. I remember I drew a snowman on you. And it was that day where like I feel like my life like really changed, and I got to meet so many people who just looked like me. It was like, oh, you're on testosterone as well. Does this weird thing happen to you? And just having that like validation from somewhere other than like Reddit, like it being a real person in front of me.
Yeah.
And so disco was a very big part of that for me. And I'm at a point now where I don't really have time to go, which I wish I did. But it's been nice because I'm able to pass that space on to my clients without it feeling like a weird conflict of interest. And I'm like, hey, like, I found my community here. Like, I really think you should check this place out.
No, that's great. I think that's great. And then for Ben, for you, I mean, you've shown up in sort of a big splashy way with the DCI color guard, right? And also your work in healthcare, you've shown up for the community in sort of like physical and spiritual ways. And so where have you felt most held in return?
Within my community, my generation, I was so happy when we went to the Equality March in DC, to see me perform for Righteously Not Outrageous 24. Being in that community, that sense of love from those guys, that was always a safe space for me, a welcoming space to have a voice and to be out there in the world doing my part. And I'm so happy to be a part of Badger Pride. I feel like it gives me an opportunity to surge forward with what I want to do. I've seen the work that you put into this exhibit. I was there from the beginning when you started making the buttons. I remember our very first event, Taylor Manette came there, an ally of mine. She's here today. They love making those buttons. I love being a part of it. And you know what I really liked? That when you're on vacation, because it was a 4-month, much needed vacation, the banner came in. Yeah, so I was proud to hold that banner. You hadn't even seen it yet. To be in the first forward gay pride parade, there was only 4 of us, but we were very strong. And there were even spectators that came out to support us. There were about 4 of us. And all these pamphlets, all these buttons. It was really special that I could do that and be a part of it and carry on for you because you were on vacation in the board.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you for that. And so let's get it real quick and let's talk a little bit about. We'll get a little spicy here for a second. So what do you think? And then this is for everybody. So feel free to jump in. What is a tension or a disconnect that you feel across generations of queer folks? So as an example, right, it could be frustration with older folks not understanding pronouns. It could be older folks being frustrated with younger folks who don't understand the history of HIV and AIDS. So let's talk a little bit about that. Not to divide us, but let's name it, discuss it, right? So, anybody have any thoughts on some of the dimensions?
Sure. I'm going to take this to a macro view first. I think that one of the biggest tensions that I see is, and it's almost like a backsification of the capitalist structure where we still live in. But this idea of the ageism that's part of that plays in our community specifically about seeing the inherent value each generation holds. And also one of the questions that was sent to us that had me thinking about, just this book, and I forget the author's last Ayer or Iyer, is on social change, but essentially it talks about the different roles that people play when it comes to the social change. 10 different roles. It's like not everyone's going to be a something. Yeah. And so I think about our generations in that way. I think that there is value that is to be learned from the generations that came ahead of us because it continues to make the same mistakes over and over again. We're wasting our time and resources. But there's also value in understanding that some things have changed and the playing ground that we're on has also changed now. So we're also adapting as we're going. And I think that there is a larger conversation that has to be had to marry those theologies together. But again, outside of, queer space, outside of the LGBT community, this is something that we struggle with as people. Yes, yeah. Understanding the value that someone else's experience can bring. We spend so much time in an I space that it becomes hard. Even as queer people, you spend even more time there because you're spending for the first decade of your life figuring out, well, who the hell am I? First, before you can even then prioritize who am I amongst this larger group of people. That's right.
Can I follow suit macro?
Yeah.
I think the macro point is we can get to the nitty gritty all this. Sure. I think there's value in that, but that can sometimes be a trap.
Sure.
And that macro view I think is really wise. So I'm just going to follow you on that if I may. I think so much of our tensions is based in our unnecessary belief in scarcity.
Ooh.
There's a scarcity mindset that this country, going off your capitalism comment, we're steeped in that. The idea that my rights are so important to me, and they are, but the fact that they're so important that I can't give space for anybody else. We have to remember that my success is your success. Your success is my success. We are in this together. I know it's so corny to say, but if we keep thinking about our rights, our privilege, our luxury, our right to exist from a scarcity mindset, we are all going to end up short. And that's what we're seeing right now on a constant basis. Is the idea is like, I can't give space to trans people because I still have to heal from, being born in the 80s and being, neglected by our government and seeing my siblings die of HIV and AIDS. I can't give you space yet because I haven't created space for me to heal. And so it's a generalization, but I think they're all coming from a place of our inability to heal from the trauma that we are born into in this country. And so it's really heartbreaking because when you take a step back, all you're really seeing is a bunch of hurt people trying to heal themselves, trying to stand up for themselves, but in doing that, taking up space from somebody else who's doing the exact same thing. It's just a vicious cycle. So if we can stop thinking about our rights as scarcity, the fact that there is an abundance for all of us, I think that would put us on a path to then find healing for ourselves individually and then find space that we can take up together and celebrate each other the way that we need to be celebrated and the way that we deserve to be celebrated.
I think that's great, yes. So when I was 15, the AIDS epidemic, so we were in the middle, I was about 15, and, my friends started to die that were older than me already. I never thought I would be here today to see HIV prevention medication. I have a lot of friends die from ACT. The president would even say gay, homosexual, it's just the gay disease. You deserve it, all the people for us, like Robert Mapplethorpe, Keith Haring, all these entertainers were just dropping off. Because then we didn't know what was happening back then. Oh, you can get it from the toilet seat. A mosquito can bite you. You're going to die. Or if you're gay, you have AIDS. And go away. There's so much more work to be done in that area. Just growing up in this community, wanting to do better. And I feel obligated, you guys, as a 50-something-year-old person, that we're somewhat of the last generation now that can pass this down to the younger generations, because the ones before us are passing on. They're just leaving, or they're gone, they're so bound, or we know would have been like 95 or something. So all those people's legacy cannot go unnoticed, and I'm determined to carry on and do my part to continue that they didn't die in vain. For us, they did not die in vain, and I'll be down if they're not known for that, because I feel that we're getting lost, and younger generations do not know the struggle. That came before them of 1992. I just wanted to hold hands and thought I was progressive walking down the street. And to some of the younger generations, I would really like them to know where the fight came from, what happened to trailblazers, that we just didn't come out able to be married, gay, and not recognize where those freedoms came from, and those trailblazers that led the way for us.
I think that speaks to the healing that's necessary to the artist point. And then, so you had a
DRA, where you were like saying it's hard because there's so much trauma and like different types of trauma. I also work a lot with trauma with my clients, and I hate this also when my therapist says this to me, but like two things can be true at once.
Yes.
Like it makes me want to rip my hair out. But it's like, your generation can both be healing from the trauma of living through the AIDS epidemic. And then my generation, specifically trans folk, can also be struggling with the trauma of constantly being under attack. But that doesn't take away from either of ours. And what I really love about this right here is like we're all getting to hold space together, even with having different experiences in our lifetime because of the political climate in this country related to queer and trans folk. And I think that's just the biggest thing, is just not seeing it as like a trauma competition.
Yes.
It's like,
Yes.
yeah, where it's like, hey, you went through some hard shit, I'm going through some hard shit, like, let's talk, like, how can we help each other?
And my trauma shouldn't be a hurdle that you have to clear. you started with the queer thing, which I love, and I get it, and queer was used as a weapon against us. It's now an umbrella term.
Yeah.
And I can acknowledge that that word hurt you, but don't make me have to clear your trauma. That's personal work that you gotta do with you. You get a new client right now. So there's some self-ownership in our own trauma. And I don't think that a lot of us have spent time in there because it's still an open wound. And so I don't begrudge anybody for that, but I would love a little bit more self-awareness from all of us to be able to take a step back and be like, actually, this is my issue. If queer is good for you, that's fine. I'm not going to use it, but I'm not going to yell at you. And I'm not going to tell you that you're re-traumatizing me, because the only one who's re-traumatized that person in that moment is that person. I'm not letting it go.
No, I think that's an important point, right? That this is how we, kind of connect and uplift each other, right? And so I promise we're gonna lighten back up here in a minute, but I want to hang out here for just a second, right? So, when we talk about all of our various sort of intersectional identities, and I think that's it's something that's always been. People think it's new. It's a new concept, but it's always been there, right? And so I want to ask you, like, how do you think, how do you observe that neurodivergent and disabled queer folks get overlooked in our movement?
I think it's difficult because like neurodivergence, if someone isn't educated on what it looks like, it can be very invisible. And now if you do know what it looks like, you can like pick up on the signs and know that it's there. The same with like a lot of disabilities are also invisible. And then you add that on top of queer and trans being an identity that has been kept invisible in the past, and they keep trying to push us back down, and it's just not happening because we're not going down. But it can be really hard because it just adds on to these additional barriers, and it feels like only you see them and nobody else does. And especially when you consider like transness and neurodivergence are very linked. I think it's like 3 to 6 times more likely for neurodivergent folk to be trans or vice versa. And also queer folk in general are a lot more likely to be neurodivergent. And so it can make it very difficult, but I think the thing that's most important is like talking about those things and making them known and making them visible, because people wouldn't know all the disabilities I had unless I just sat here and listed off all 30 diagnoses, And so I think being open and like being able to talk about it is what can help with a lot of those barriers.
Yeah, I think that's true. So Ben, I'm going to jump in here and then we'll kind of work our way back into the middle here. But your experience growing up in rural Texas, how does that still shape your experience of queer joy and survive?
I survived. I got in that small town and got my ass out. I was determined. It's just something, I'm special. There was something given to me. I just know that I have to continue to go against social norms. I can be anything that I wanted to be. So I educated myself. I was still going to be this individual that I was a great person. And I had strength. It empowered me, my determination to be where I am now as an occupational therapist, and getting to work with the community, those are disabled, that are queer, that don't have a voice anymore. It brings me a lot of joy that I'm actually able to help them with their activities of daily life and still keep them out and functioning on what's going on in the world. It's very important to me as well.
I think that's right. And so when you think about the media landscape, Miguel, for especially Black trans women, that when the community is so often erased and threatened, you need to highlight that, but also not make it a trauma, expose, right? But also, how do you create those uplifting stories that highlight the beauty of the community?
Sure. Love this question. First, and I want to do this intentionally as it's intergenerations panel. Being able to do this is first understanding the history of representation looks like for Black trans women or for Black trans people, or for Black people in general. Yes. I mean, we can, even if you take the queer element out of the fact what Black people, how Black people were depicted in animation, on screen, what roles we were associated with, the typecasts that come with that, all of those things we still wear as Black queer people. And now you add the element of the queer typecasts that come with that.
Yeah.
And what the media's favorite thing to do is give trans a look. And how that is very obvious in the transgender person, just a little too masculine to pass, or a transvestite person just a little too feminine to pass. We can make sure that dichotomy is on screen so you know that this person's not quite, something's off. Yeah? And so understanding that that's a very active thing well before this political landscape that we're in now, that is an active history that we're working against, is something that I first kind of made sure that I was fully entrenched and understood. So the second part of that is understanding that my own experience is not something that can blanket all the other Black trans experiences that are out there. Myself, I spent the majority of my 20s living stealth because I had the privilege to do so. And the moment in which I chose not to live stealth is when I was able to then actively create community, but what it also did was open my eyes to how different versions of my story exist in the world, and then the reasons why they would never get told because they didn't make people feel comfortable, wouldn't see themselves in them. And so when telling a story as a Black trans woman for Black trans people, or just for trans people in general, it is a very thin tightrope to cross, because there's an understanding that the platform that I'm standing on right now, it is fragile at best. And all it takes is the wrong word, or the wrong interview, or the wrong clip. And now my mistake, my human error, is now a badge for the rest of my community to wear. And we're still very much active living that topic. So that is one thing to consider. The other part is the privilege that I get to show folks that this transitions look like me. You may have invited me in this room because I remind you, or whatever the case may be, whatever set in your spirit to invite me in this room, but I'm also bringing this legion of folks with me into this room when I take up that space. And so, yeah, that responsibility and privilege relationship, it's not something to take lightly.
Yeah, no, it's a calls for that.
I try not to think of it that way. I have heard the word martyr thrown at me.
It's on the show.
It's there in the background of the story. But no, if I'm being honest, yes, sometimes it is because, part of the development of my 30s is that I didn't ask for it, but it would be irresponsible of me to ignore it like it's not there. Like, people are not looking at me and thinking of me and inviting me for these reasons and then not giving me.
Thank you for being a stand-up individual. Thank you very much.
I love your phrasing there about you carry legions with you, right? And I think we all, in our own way, do that. DR, when you think of like your space as an artist, what's the role of art in making, especially queer people, feel seen, not just represented, but reflected?
I mean, visibility has always been our greatest weapon for the fight for equality, and that's for any marginalized group. So, I mean, art in just the concept in itself is a form of visibility. So whatever that looks like for you, and art comes in so many different forms, on the stage, on a canvas, on paper with pen, and I mean, I also think, just kind of going back to what I said earlier, like, as queer people, we are our own work of art, and being here, being alive, doing whatever it is that we do is our own song, and I'm gonna always encourage people to stay as visible as possible with whatever they're doing. So yeah, I think, and for you know, as a generational conversation, you know, film, TVs, plays, those were our earliest entry points into pulp culture. Oftentimes, as was depicted by my friend here, that you know, not necessarily the best images, AIDS victims, best friends, people who have mental illness and murderers, but we were still there, and it's grown since then, and we're in, I'm saying, our adolescence still with appropriate and honest depictions of queer people when it comes to media and art. But yeah, I think it's a tried and true way to tell people that we're here and we're queer and we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I think that's right. Well, and that was one of the major takeaways also from our discussion yesterday with Mark Siegel, was visibility. You show up for yourself and each other. Like that is the thing that we've got to do.
I can't tell you how many people have told me they've taken their pride flags down since the inauguration. And I get it. I'm never going to begrudge anyone for trying to stay safe, but this is not the time. Put those flags back up. If you don't have one, go buy one and put them up. I think it would be an amazing experiment if every queer person in Dallas got a queer flag, and if you have a house, I know there's some privilege there, sorry, apologies, or wherever you are, outside of your window, your apartment, if every queer person put one of those flags up, I think it would drastically change the landscape and be a wake-up call to ourselves and the people around us, how much we're still queer, and we're not going anywhere. Sorry, my little plug there, little soapbox.
Yeah,
I have many more. I'm trying to keep them minimal.
Yeah, that's right. So just a couple of final sort of this is open questions for everybody here. What principle, like pick one thing that you defend no matter what. What is a non-negotiable for you? What value is non-negotiable?
I have one that I use on quite a few panels. So if you see me speak, you probably heard me talk about this. But at the corridor that I'm in, I open with, if we're not thinking about the most marginalized person in the room at the most marginalized intersection, then we are building out all of us. They're not one. I mean, in order to create resource, to create space, to create history for that marginalized identity, you are diving through every other level of identity that's in that room in order to get there. So if you're not able to do that work, then.
Yeah, I think that's great. That's right. Anyone else?
Women's rights for me is a big deal. Misogyny is alive and well in our culture, in our country right now, and I would dare I say, even more so in the gay male community. If I have to hear one other gay man like shudder or say gross when somebody mentions the vagina or menstruation, I'm gonna punch him in the face. And I'm not a violent person. It's just gross. It's terrible. And that's one of my soapboxes that I take everywhere with me. I think I've been disinvited to some pool parties because I've sat there and just been like, hey y'all, we don't do that here. It's not a big deal. But I just think it's gross and it's terrible. And every gay man who might be watching me listening, let it go. The female body is a beautiful thing. It's a magical thing. And we should be celebrating that. Even if it's not something that you are into or think about, it exists and it's beautiful and it deserves your celebration.
Yeah. What's one thing you're still trying to figure out?
Patience and diplomacy.
Same.
I'm looking forward to forwarding their generations together. We're right here. We have an opportunity, like right now, to reach the young generation of 54 and 30. And you guys are going to carry it on, but right now we're sitting here talking about educating each other. Where we band, where we plan to go.
Yes.
And we will stay strong and build this out because we have to. It's an obligation for us to do that. So many people do not have this opportunity to discuss these things. We're like, hey, we don't see me. Hey, you're not doing anything. Oh, you do it the most. We don't have so we all can go into the future educating the young generation that are coming after you guys.
Yes.
The work that we've done should not go unnoticed and underpaid on you guys.
Yes.
And I think the knowledge goes back and forth,
those.
Up the age ladder,
Yeah.
too, right? That needs to be shared.
It's
Yeah, I that's well there.
Yeah, I was gonna add, like, the thing that I'm still working on is knowing my history and like knowing my queer history, because I wanna make sure that what y'all did doesn't just vanish, you know? And, one of the things that I love in my practice is my youngest client is 11 years old, and then my oldest is 65. And he honestly just comes in because he likes talking. He's like, I just want someone to talk to. Like, I need socialize it. But it's really cool because I get to hear stories, like firsthand accounts of him on what it was like living on Cedar Springs in the 80s. And I will kind of like talk to him about like what it's like with like my queer generation. And the other day he brought in a shirt that he had bought on the strip in the 80s, and it had the pink triangle and it said like too strong, too powerful, and something else. And he dug that out of his like closet from 40 years ago because he wanted to show it to me. And I'm also wanting to just know more about queer history, just not just like media or museums, but also just like talking to people.
Be the change that you want to see in the world.
Be the change that I want to see, girl. So many people have been saying that, nothing has changed. I'm gonna get your blueprint and you're gonna change. Change.
We're
talking about- Exactly. We're talking about education and queer history. I'm curious, does everyone know where the pink triangle came from? No? Great, I love that. So the pink triangle was like the yellow star that Nazis put on their prisoners. They had a pink star for queer people. So queer men predominantly were in concentration camps, and they were targeted and murdered because of their identity, and that was their identification, was the pink triangle, whereas the Jews was the star, the yellow star of David. So that's why, you know, Adrian said we took it back. We did take it back. That is no longer a symbol that is used by the Nazis to oppose us. It's now a symbol of liberation. It's a symbol of activism, and it's important that we know that.
This is why it's.
That's right. And we have, through partnership with the No Hate campaign, we do have that Nazi artifact in the exhibit. So you can see one in person. It's a heavy experience in the space. What does pride mean to you all today?
I'm able to carry my experiences down to younger people and, you know, maintain with the older generations. I'm very proud that I'm in a position to still be here to get this charity since I'm very proud to be the person that I am. And I'm looking forward to going forward and just being proud for everyone, our allies. I have Taylor here as my ally, and Jeremiah's here to support me. He created E-Flag in Tampa he was talking about. So all these experiences, I'm thankful to have you guys, by the way. I'm just looking forward to seeing how we grow and continue to be a community and continue to fight. I'm very proud that I'm actually here to have this conversation and be on this panel with you guys. Because I feel like everything that our generation, my generation did was going to be lost. If I felt like it was going away, and there's no one that did the struggle or village and all those struggles that they just came out with these liberties and these rights to do whatever. No. You did those people that fought before you, and we have to do this. So I'm proud that I'm still here. I still have a voice. I will continue to have a voice.
Awesome. Well, again, let's give it up to the allies, because we can't do anything without allies. We need allies to help us here so that we're all uplifting each other. Actually, I'm going to stick with you guys here at the end of the table here, because I think we talk a lot about what young people need to know and learn, but on kind of this end of the table here, what are you learning from young people today? What's your takeaway?
How to say no. I've been really inspired by the younger generations across all political and gender and sexual identities of saying no to the way that it was done for so long. I hope my generation helped inspire that. I know your generation definitely did that. But what we're now seeing is the younger generation actually stepping up and saying, no, I'm not going to work at this shitty job because you don't respect me. And I could see many of us being like, well, why didn't I think of that? I could say no to that. And that's happened for me in a lot of ways. It's old. And that's the hard lesson for you to know is like, no is necessary magic. And what I'm seeing from the younger generation is kind of using that magic in a really powerful way to create really powerful social change that I hope will be everlasting.
And through Badger Pride, I think that will continue to, it's important, all these archives are here, no one really, they don't appreciate this exhibit. I've been disappointed actually in my generation because we complain about, I can't hold hands, I can't do this. And so we're here right now and can pass this information on to younger people. I think it's a responsibility, and I would like to see it be done more in the future because we just have to keep all of this alive. And this exhibit is wonderful. It was very touching for me, but I knew the struggle and all the work that you put in it from the buttons, from the very beginning. It's when you see this exhibit, if you haven't seen it, it's this feeling about it just comes over you. I remember when you curated. And I was there, I was like already crying with the introduction. Okay, but I was getting ready to go. It would be powerful having to, have a partner that died from AIDS, several friends that have gone before me, and I will not let them just be gone. So this exhibit, and it's very hard. It's dear to my heart to see that at age 12 and go by. And to have seen, my friends back in the day with lesions and there was no medication. And I'm actually happy that I never thought that I would see a time with same-sex marriage and all of these things. And now we have HIV prevention medicine. I never thought that I would see that happen. It was a death sentence for so long. And just 20 years ago, I helped my partner get on to his HIV medication, and now to see that, oh my God, we have something to help, and these children do not have to live with this and live. That's right. Carry on.
Yeah, I think that's an important point to make, and so we talk about what we're learning from the younger generation here, and wanting to continue that dialogue and that sharing. I now want to ask you both. If you're,
What's gonna do it?
yeah, you're like, what are you admiring? But if you were thinking about your own legacy and you're talking to somebody 50 years from now, you're putting a message in the bottle. What are you telling the future?
For me, like, the thing that is so important is don't let them make us invisible again. Because of all the hard work that y'all put in, like, I don't want that to go to waste. And I know, like, I've seen, like, with y'all's generation where sometimes it's harder to, like, even be openly affectionate in public or, like, be out and proud because there's still all that trauma from growing up with being told that everything about you is wrong. And I see with these young kids, like, they're like, I don't give a fuck what you think. Like I'm queer, I'm trans. And I admire them so much for that. And I think it is just so beautiful. And so a big value of mine is like, I'm going to be my authentic self anywhere I walk into. Even when I'm with clients, like I'm very open about being queer and trans and the struggles. And I told them the only thing I won't talk about is what I haven't talked about in therapy. That way I don't make you my therapist. And they're like, like a lot of them have told me about how that has helped them be more authentic in other areas of their life. And then when you're authentic, you can find genuine community. And community is what keeps us alive.
Absolutely no.
So for me, what I would say, It properly opened with knowledge is power and know the shoulders, understand the shoulders for which your power rests. Secondly, there is, and I think it's from this on us now, so I'll still put it in the model 50 years from now. But there is something so empowering about having listed living history in front of you. Something special about Texas, and for Texans to wake up to now and spread at large, is the affront that's happening on our education systems right now. We have erasure going on in curriculum, erasure going on in books. We have staff being fired from their affinity groups being banned from the schools. And so the reliance that our institutional structures will keep that history going, we don't have that. I mean, we couldn't trust it before, to be clear, but the pat on the back that they gave us, well, you're welcome here up until it's convenient, that is down later, right? And so it becomes our responsibility to create those beacons, those libraries, those archives that we can reference later so that we're not making the same mistakes later or having to happen when everything has already been done. And I would challenge all of us to do that is to embrace the living history that's still here, get the story that the horse's mouth, or as close to the horse's mouth as we can.
Yeah.
Because there is going to be a time where there will be a book you can pick up and find out the truth.
That's right. I think that's important. We got to safeguard those truths, right? So I can stand here and talk to you for hours.
Okay.
I want to wrap up. So today's a special day for our community. You don't know, you haven't seen it yet, but today is what would have been Marsha P. Johnson's birthday.
Happy birthday, Marsha.
Happy birthday, Marsha. So I want to wrap us up with a couple of Marsha quotes. She was always eminently quotable, but I love these two here. First is, we have to be visible. This was talked about on this panel here today. We have to be visible. We should not be ashamed of who we are. I think that's an important message for all of us. And to wrap us up here too, no pride for some of us without liberation for all of us. All right, panel, thank you so much. I enjoyed this conversation. Thank you all for attending. I do want to hold some space if there's any questions from the audience.
Can you explain for people who don't know what the word neurodivergent means and what that is?
Yeah, so it's like neurodivergent, like if you were using it like in the technical sense, encompasses pretty much any sort of like mental disorder or neurodevelopmental disorder. So that could include like anxiety, also includes personality disorders, like BPD, bipolar. But culturally, people use it more to refer to specifically autism and ADHD. And then people will also say ADHD to like combine if you have both of them.
I'm curious if you would agree with this. I kind of see it as like there is an unspoken social contract that many of us just adhere to naturally in our culture, and neurodivergent are people that do not automatically subscribe to that contract.
Oh, but we don't even know what it is.
That's how I like to describe it. It's just like, I'm not saying the contract is the right thing to do, but it's happened in our culture, and so, yeah, okay.
Well, we'll like become aware of it sometimes, but then we never know if the way we're becoming aware of it is how it actually is. And so you're like, I think I'm supposed to do this, but I don't know.
I think there was, yes.
Yeah, so is there currently a group of millennial or Gen Z that is assisting and actively memorializing the work that came before us? And if not, is there a plan to form one?
From the younger generation?
Sure.
I think Bachelor Pride is doing it. The Dallas Way has been doing that. I think it has skewed a little on the older side because we need to collect those stories before it's too late. I do know that there's a bunch of just like queer kids all over the country that are very much devoted to queer anthropology, and that's really cool. Outside of that, I think the reflection is what we're seeing in politics right now is I think there's a desire for it, there's a passion for it, but what are you going to do with it? So much of these archives are attached to schools, and what we just talked about is that funding is going away. So I'm terrified of what happens at UNT. We've got a giant Dallas Way up there, but if the government continues on the path they're doing, that funding could go away, and then UNT could be forced to capitulate, and we don't know where that stuff's going to go. So we need non-educational based archives. Yeah, that's my opinion. So I in Dallas, I would say Badge of Pride, Dallas Way.
Yeah, and I would give a plug for Yes for Queer.
Yes for Queer,
in
yes.
Fort Worth. So they do active queer history programming every month. So from queer history happy hours to trivia nights and all that kind of stuff. So they're building a culture and community around their the Tarrant County queer history. So
The shameless and plug myself a little bit too, if I could.
yeah.
So another hat that I wear is I am the founder of Studio Loren. And so we are a talent collective. I represent artists, public speakers, comedians, you name it. But all of my talent right now are Black and queer. But that can expand beyond that. But the other prong of that function is that Studio Loren will have its own streaming platform. And so it will function to have a platform for these histories or content to go on, whether it be music, whether it be oratory histories, whether it be episodic histories. There'll be an array of content for these things to live on digitally, so that way we can rely on these institutional treasures or something.
Yeah, that's very, very necessary and urgent and timely. Yes.
I want, because I feel like something that I have noticed is people's lack of interest in history, like a complete, like I feel like every time I try to talk to someone about history, it's like there's no desire for them to learn the past and have a like reflect on how that affects the future. So what do you guys think is a way to get people to engage with history and see it as a tool that is very useful and not like unneeded, I guess?
I think a lot of times history feels like you can't connect with it because something's already happened, and we look at all the differences and go look at things that are similar. One thing that I've found effective is pointing out the cycles of similarities, particularly now because they are so glaringly obvious and not very well concealed. And so if you are a person like myself who are very quick to pick up patterns, being able to explain that, illustrate that to people becomes a little, I find it easier for me than the average person. Because I'm a person that can pick up a pattern and I know that person would. And I think that that is something that brings people, draws people into a conversation, because you may have came in with, thinking that I'm gonna convince this person at this point, but you have probably been convinced it's gonna be 3/4 into your argument. And so, yeah, I bring folks into the things that they connect to tangibly now, because these things represent patterns that exist in history.
Continue to ask those questions. That's very important. Be out there and be loud. I really like that question. Ask those questions more often and see if we can bridge this gap and continue to go forward.
I think intentionality is key too. I think history is everywhere. What Adrian just did by reminding us about Marsha P. Johnson's birthday was today. I think anybody who has a platform, any organizations that you all are doing, I think we can be intentional about it. We have the entire sum of human knowledge at the finger of at our fingertips, and we use a lot of it for games and email, but it's also a walking historical document that you can, whatever you're doing, you can see what's happening, and just that little slip in, like, oh, by the way, this is, National Whatever Month, and this person did this. Like, I don't know about you, but I get off on that shit. Like, I find somewhere, and a host or a moderator or an organization can ground the moment that I'm into history, especially queer history, I go gaga for that shit. So I think we can do that. We can be intentional about it.
I would say at disco balls. In the design of this exhibit, we were very intentional about that. So people think like, oh, boring, history is so boring. But it's not. And to the point made earlier, how do you make that direct connection to what's going on today? Why is it important? And then make it visually appealing. So make it pink and throw a bunch of disco balls on it and see if that works.
Adrian, will we have a guided tour with the museum today?
I'll be around for questions. That's for sure.
Okay, I'm just gonna put
Yeah.
you- I want you to do it.
All right, friends, I wanna wrap us up here. Give us a plug. What's next for you? What are you working on?
I really only work a bit. My brain like blanks for a second, but I am a local therapist. Currently my caseload is really full, but if anyone is like needing help like finding a therapist who is like queer or trans affirming, I have some cards with me, so y'all can just come up to me at the end. Yeah.
For myself, so again, I am the donor relations and communications coordinator for Texas Park Community Foundation. We will be opening our Texas Health Impact Cohort grant cycle on Monday the 25th. That application will let people run for about 30 days. And so if you are part of a nonprofit organization throughout the state of Texas at all that is serving some of the most critically under-resourced and underreached folks and throughout the state that need health resources, I strongly urge you to apply. It is the only program of ours that does award grant monies for 3 consecutive years. So there's that going on, and then I also do some work in Houston. And so one of the nonprofits up there, the Transaction Project, they host an annual Transgiving celebration. It's pretty large. They had like 80 people to try out last year. Yeah, and so we'll be holding it November 22nd of this year in Houston. More to come on the venue. So if you want to get connected with that, just get with me on my social media.
I am co-hosting the Madonna Mixer with DSQO this Wednesday, so come out to Crush. We're gonna have fun continuing this intergenerational exploration together. We hope all generations will come out, have a drink, get to know your gamers, and have a good time. I'm also the founder of Cinewild, we're an LGBTQ film series here in Dallas. Follow us on social media. We do queer screenings with education and engagement once a month. We're still figuring out next month's film, so I can't tell you that, but just follow us on social media to stay abreast of all of our screenings there. And I'm working with Sue Ellens on a National Coming Out Day, Saturday, October 11th. Coming out is a never-ending journey for queer people, and so I think this national holiday celebration is really important. So come out to Sue Ellens, have a drink, tell us what you're exploring on with your identity. If you liked how Game of Thrones ended, you can come out. It's a safe and brave space for all people, and we've been doing it for the past 4 years at Sue Ellens, so please come out and celebrate with us.
Going forward, I plan to continue my work with Badge and Pride and have a more active role. A bit volunteer, but I want to step up and do a little bit more and have continued involvement.
Oh, you heard it here, Adrian.
Hey, I'm with you to work. All right, friends. Well, thank you all so much. One quick plug, follow Badge of Pride on Instagram, all the socials. We got some really cool shit coming, y'all. So stay tuned, follow us there. Thank my panel here once again. Thank you, Adrian, and Badge of Pride. It's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for the early recognition museum for hosting this exhibition for us. You will do that. Thank you all. Thank you. Sure.